Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Sophia with Garden State Film Festival. It is the 21st anniversary, over 230 films from 23 countries, lots of variety of films. There's something for everyone, and we are here talking about the documentary feature, Heart and Soul. Here to talk to us about it is Kenny Vance, the director of the documentary, and the
Hi.
producer in the room, Bronwyn Barry. Thank you both so much for joining me. Congratulations. And
Thank
it's,
you.
it's really a pleasure I get to interview you guys today.
Hi,
Thank you.
Sophia. Nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you guys. So before we get into these questions I got about the documentary, can one of you tell all of everybody a little bit about the documentary?
Well, it's a documentary about something that I grew up loving, and as I got to a certain point, I wanted to share that with people. I wanted to let people know what it was about and how it made me feel. And we had footage over the years that was lost in uh, a hurricane that actually crushed my house, and some of the footage
Oh my
was
gosh.
restored, uh, was found in the house, and then over the years we restored the footage, and we actually got a chance to put this beautiful movie together that actually has the feeling that I felt when I was 13 years old, when I first heard this music in Brooklyn, New York, in the streets, on the subways, in the subway stations, and then finally at a show, the first ever rock and roll show at the Brooklyn Paramount Theater, run by a famous disc jockey in the 50s by the name of Alan Freed.
Oh my gosh. That is tremendous. I definitely want to talk about the footage because that was like my first question because some of them are date back from 1950s, some of them are behind the scenes, awesome conversations. I want to talk about all that. But first, I want to know when you first decided to make a documentary. Like how did you guys get together and when was this born?
Well, actually, I started doing it many years ago, over 15 years ago, collecting footage. I started a group in the year 19 in the 1900s. No, in in the
Some time frame.
1900s. That's how far back I go. And we started this group in the 1992, and we wound up on this circuit that I didn't know existed, and it was a it was music from that period that was still playing all over the country to big audiences, and I got a chance to play on those shows with my heroes. And it was at that point that I thought it would be a great idea to interview them and talk to them. And then about 3 years ago, we kind of got serious. We had to raise the money, and I luckily met Bronwyn, and she's been just a tremendous ally and a real inspiration to the whole project.
Bronwyn, how did you feel when you were first asked to be a part of it?
Well, I'm approached about a couple of documentary projects, and I usually watch whatever footage is available, and I get excited or not, as the case may be. But I watched the 20 minutes that they had put together, and I was just like, oh, wow, this music is incredible. I got so excited about the music as a starting point. And I was like, I want to be part of this documentary because I want to listen to this music and find out more about it. I didn't really know that much about it. I mean, it was a little bit before my era, and I grew up in South Africa, and we were not really listening to American music. We were more listening to British music. So I did a deep dive into the era 1950s and 1960s and discovered so much. And I must say, the best thing about this whole project was listening to this music all the time, because no matter how many times I heard these songs, I just love them, and they stay very, very fresh for me.
Yes. Oh, it's such a vibe. I mean, and the feelings you get listening to this music and watching this film. It's interesting because it's like not just a history lesson. I think it's very historical, but it's like a love letter. And I'm wondering, is that what you guys kind of like? What was the mission to make this documentary? What did you want to say with it?
Well, aside from the historical aspects of it, we did want it to be a love letter, and we wanted people to love it and feel it the way we do. We've played it a few other festivals, and we see that when it comes on, the music is so powerful. And I say to people usually, I say to people afterwards, who do you think played on these records? And they really, nobody has any idea who played on them. And it was a sort of a hybrid. The songs that were created, it was the first time that songs were created by kids and the audience was for kids. It was kind of an adolescent version of the music that had preceded it, which was basically rhythm and blues by older people. And so this music was young kids, teenage kids writing these songs, or as they say, we didn't really write any songs, we made up some songs. And the people that played on them were jazz veterans from the 30s and 40s. And it was sort of like two worlds colliding. And the two worlds collided, and this hybrid music was the was the result of it. And it was really the beginning of what we know today as rock and roll.
Right. It's amazing. So Bronwyn, there's so much footage on this, and like you said, Kenny, a lot of that was the footage that you had recovered from a hurricane. That is insane. How much of what we see is what you already had or what you recorded for the documentary?
Bronwyn, what would you say?
Well, the documentary, it comes. There's so many different sources with this film, and I think that that's part of its incredible uniqueness. Is all these layers. Um, because some of it was recovered from Kenny's house after Hurricane Sandy. And I mean, those incredible Jay and the Americans. They were VHS tapes. They were all shot on Super 8, and they are so great. I mean, you wouldn't think that taking a VHS that was shot like in the 1960s and blowing it up on the big screen that it's going to hold, but it actually has this incredible quality to it that makes you feel like you were almost there.
Yes.
And from there we had a whole lot of footage that was shot on in the early 2000s. That was one kind of camera. And then Kenny had, gone to all these concerts, and he had recorded footage like in the late 90s, early 2000s on one of those little DV cameras, or we called it a handy cam. And I mean, it's got an incredible verite feel about it, because you feel like you're there. The camera's moving, it's not perfectly framed, the lighting's all over the place, but we feel like we're there. And it has a real sense of immediacy. And then we also did a deep dive into archive of the 1950s, and that's where you find like the Chantal's performance and the little Anthony's performance. We try to get as much as we could of the characters that we were talking to in the film, of what they were doing at the time, and what performances looked like at the time. And I mean, the combination of all that different footage, I think, gives this film such a unique quality.
I absolutely agree. And you say it makes you feel like you're there. Absolutely, because most documentaries, I feel like it's very presentational, especially when you're kind of asking, like when you're looking at someone and they're talking about their experience, it's very presentational, but you see these conversations and it's just so organic. And Kenny, like watching you with all these, just legends and musicians. And so, what was it like for you to? to watch this documentary and revisit all these wonderful memories that from the 1950s?
Well, every time I see it, I remember sitting with Wally Roker from the Heartbeats. I remember seeing Wally Roker when I was 15 years old at the Brooklyn Paramount. The Heartbeats, just 1,000 miles away, was the name of their song. When I sit with Cleveland Still from the Dubs, I remember seeing him when I was a boy at the Brooklyn Paramount, never thinking that I would ever meet these people. Jimmy Merchant from Frankie Lyman's Teenagers, and hanging around with Little Anthony and the Imperials, one of the greatest groups of that kind ever, and actually getting a chance to sing with them. And when I see it on the screen, it's just a very gratifying feeling, and uh, a feeling that just never goes away for me.
I can imagine, or I can't imagine, but I can try
That's
to.
it.
And I think we have to shout out, if anyone doesn't know, Kenny was the founding member of Jay and the Americans, which made some awesome hits like This Magic Moment, which thank you, because I started listening to that again recently. I haven't heard that in a
Yeah,
while. And
it's pretty
it's
good.
it's so, and she cries.
Yeah, she
Such
cried.
good jams that are still amazing today.
Yeah, thank you.
So
Thank you.
it's so amazing. So there's so much footage. There's so much information. I mean, Kenny, this is like your life all put in like an hour and 30 minutes, not your whole life, but you know, a lot of it in just an hour and 30 minutes. How hard was it to like piece this together and bring it to what we see and that we're going to see in Garden State Film Festival? I don't know if you want to talk about that, Bronwyn. Like,
Well,
was there many different versions of this?
it wasn't simple.
It
It
was,
wasn't
it's certainly,
simple.
yeah. I mean, an edit process on a documentary like this is never simple, especially,
Right.
I mean, we had more than 100 hours of footage from all over the place, and none of it had been shot with this film in mind. So it wasn't like, okay, this is the central character or central narrative or anything. It was just all these kind of disparate elements. And, you know, working with the editor, Mona Davis, you know, we really worked in a kind of a very analog way when we came to put the film together, because we wrote all the scenes and all the songs and all the characters on index cards, and we put them all over the wall. And this was during the pandemic, and I was going to her apartment, and we would just sit in this room and put all these cards all over the wall. And that's really how the film came together, through the index card system. So we would take photos of the cards and send them to Kenny, who was in Florida, and he would look at them, comment on them, and then we would start work on scenes.
Why it was so difficult is it's sort of like it was like we had a jigsaw puzzle, and we had 100 hours of footage, and we basically put the pieces out on the table. But when you put a jigsaw puzzle together, you basically have the box and the picture of the completed puzzle is in front of you. Well, we didn't have that. All we had were these different pieces. So we had to put together a jigsaw puzzle without knowing where we were going with it. And so the three of us basically put it together, and it wasn't simple, but it was so from the heart.
Wow.
And that's what we got. Heart and
The
soul.
heart and the soul.
Heart and soul.
Oh my God. Through index cards, like that is insane. I didn't even, such an interesting way of doing that. How long did that process take?
2 years.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh, wow.
the edit took about 8 months, but you know, we kept on discovering new archival along the way. And we also went through a process of screening the film for, you know, a select audience, and they had actually really, really good notes. And most of their notes were about Kenny's role in the film, because in an original version, we had kind of kept him out a little bit and made the artists, Little Anthony Imperials and the Chantels and all of those people, we put them more center stage. But you know, notes came back that people wanted to understand who Kenny actually was and see his journey through the film. And so those are the changes we made. And that's kind of why it went on, into the year mark and then the year and a half mark. But, that's a
Right.
documentary.
Yeah. And then you watch this and you don't realize how much, I mean, you can see how much work was put into it watching it. You know it took a while and a lot of love and heart and soul, like we're saying. I mean, we're running out of time. I could talk to you guys all day, but let me first just ask you how it feels to have this screening at Garden State Film Festival in Asbury Park, which is a huge music venue, especially in New Jersey. How does it feel having this documentary
I'm
show?
I'm I'm thrilled. I used to play with they had at the Asbury Park on the beach there. There's that I'm not sure what it's called.
Paramount Theater?
No, it is now, I think, but it was just I'm going back to the '60s where I would play there with it was called an Evening of Solid Gold, and it would be
Wow.
Jay and the Americans, Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, the Four Tops, and Martha and the Vandellas,
Oh
and it
my
was a
God.
sellout, and we would play there every summer. And I always loved coming down there. And the Stone Pony is that what
Yeah, that's still there.
the Stone Pony is there? And
Mm.
I worked on a film called Eddie and the Cruisers, and John Cafferty and the Beaver Brown Band play there all the time. So I've gone there many times, and I'm just thrilled that getting a chance to have our film there. And I know that Bronwyn likes to travel, so uh, she'll enjoy seeing the city. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I really am.
Oh, I love it. And Kenny, are you gonna make it for the film
I
festival?
am definitely going to make it.
Oh my gosh, amazing. Well,
But
Yeah,
yeah,
it is.
just the
Yeah,
best thing about this film now is to actually experience the audience's response, because that's what we love. We love to be there when everybody's watching it, because the energy in the room is just palpable.
right. And I'm sure such different responses from the musicians, people who are in that time, people who don't know the music, people who do know the music. I can imagine how different these reactions are. So I'm really excited for audiences to see it
great,
this year.
great.
I know I loved it. I can't wait to meet you guys in person. Let me tell everyone watching how they can see Heart and Soul. It will be screening in Asbury Lanes, March 25th in the Film Block 3 to 4:30 p.m. So definitely check it out. Asbury Lanes will be a perfect venue for this. So I'm just it's been such an amazing experience talking to you both. Thank you again and
Uh,
congratulations.
thank you, thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you
Sophia.
guys.
Bye.
Bye.